Welcome to the tutorial of North Dakota's Interactive Airport Pavement Management Tool. For those of you that are familiar with previous versions of this tool, much of the content remains the same, and navigating through it is very similar to those versions that have been hosted before. This demonstration and interactive presentation is going to cover a few of the basic areas of the tool and provide some updated features and use of those features moving forward with this new version and release. For those that are familiar, this tool presents the results of the most recent update to the North Dakota Airport Pavement Management System. That included an updated pavement condition and inspection of all the airports included in the system, analysis of pavement repair needs, and documentation of all those results in the form of this tool, as well as some downloadable PDF format reports, both a statewide executive summary report, as well as individual executive summary style reports for each airport. To start, on the home page, it provides you with a couple of different ways to get to some of the information. You can see on the left-hand side that there are several categories, bullet point items here. Statewide summary statistic information, individual airport details, some guidelines for pavement maintenance, some background information on the PCI survey method used to assess the condition of airports, as well as some additional miscellaneous information. That information is also accessible at the top of the screen in the upper right-hand corner, where you have the statewide summary information is broken out into various categories of summarized information. Individual airport details can be selected here, as well as the maintenance guidelines, pavement inspection, and some miscellaneous information. I'll start by selecting the statewide summary information. This portion of the tool provides larger pictures of the overall system, the amount of pavement area, various conditions, the amount of pavement area by facility use type, condition summary information, details on the average area weighted PCI by runways for the state, or broken out between different airport classifications. And it also provides kind of a broad picture of the overall needs of the system, as well as tracking some of the historical system conditions and parameters, how they compare to the most recent evaluation of the state system, and then projections of where the condition of the system will go in the future under various funding scenarios for pavement repairs. I'll start out by just showing some area summary information. These are very quick, summarized statistics showing pavement area broken out by type, pavement area broken out by use. So as an example, as you scroll down, you'll see pie charts here. For all the airports in the system, there's roughly 14.8 million square feet, or roughly 25% of the system is apron area pavement. In this case, you can see the breakdown between general aviation airports as well as commercial service airport pavements. We have airports that are located within and also not located between the non-oil producing counties and the oil producing counties, as well as funding eligibility in the system. The majority of the airports being federally eligible for money for their pavement needs analysis as part of the NIPIAS program. Finally, down at the bottom, there's overall for all airports, the relative amount of pavement in each PCI or pavement condition category, showing a bar chart here. Roughly, in this case, 24 million square feet of the pavement is in the 86 to 100 PCI category. And you can see the interactive approach as you scroll over and select the various condition categories. I do want to mention that in some areas you will see a chart selection, both where you can display both a chart like you're seeing here, but also a table of those results. Or if you don't have a lot of screen resolution, you're looking at this, let's say on a tablet or a smaller laptop, you can look at just the table information so it doesn't take up as much real estate on your screen and take up as much resolution. So that is available throughout many of the features within the interactive program. And anytime you select those, you have those options. Some of the other information, this was area summary. We break that out further. The first tab was for all the airports in the system. The second tab actually breaks it out by airport classification, whether it's commercial service or general aviation, provides very similar information, how much square footage of asphalt overlaid on asphalt pavement, that's what AAC means, and whether it's commercial or it's general aviation. And it breaks out the similar information to the first tab. It just shows you it's split out between the two classifications of airports. It also shows the condition distribution by airport classification. Further down the list here, we have the same information presented split between oil producing and non-oil producing counties. Same information presented in the same way. And then finally, we show it split between airports that are eligible or part of the NIPIAS and those airports that are not part of the NIPIAS, same information. So that's area inventory, area summary information. We provide similar information for the age of pavements, and we have similar divisions and delineations between that, providing all airports in the first tab here, sub-tab. So this is going to prevent area information or area weighted age of the pavement under each pavement type, surface type, facility use or branch use, split between commercial and general aviation, oil producing, and eligibility, whether it's part of the NIPIAS or not, and then again, pavement condition distribution, or based on how many years old each one of these categories, the average age of the pavement in each one of these condition categories. So this is for all the airports in the system, and we also provide that same breakdown by airport classification, also by oil region, and additionally by funding eligibility. I would say that the summarized statistic and information that's presented here is essentially the same as past updates to the pavement management system. The only thing that's been done this time is that the information's been updated as it was collected in 2021. The last summarized statistics are condition summary information, providing overall summary conditions based on all the airports in the system, area weighted PCI by airport, area weighted PCI by just the runway at each airport, and some other information broken out by classification, oil region, and funding eligibility, or whether it's part of the NIPIAS or not part of the NIPIAS. So in this condition summary information, you're looking at all the airports in the system, and the area weighted condition of all asphalt overlaid on asphalt pavements in the system is a PCI of 66. So that's how you're seeing this information and how you should understand this information. The overall area weighted PCI of all of the runway pavements in the state is a 79 today, or at least as of 2021. And then you can see delineation between airport classification, commercial and general aviation, oil region and non-oil region, and NIPIAS and non-NIPIAS. If you want to see information broken out by airport and area weighted PCI of each airport, we provide that information as well. And this information is just a simple table, and it just shows the area weighted calculation for all of the pavements that are included at each airport. We did break that out to just show the area weighted PCIs of the runways of each of the airports. So that information is shown as well in a simple table for each runway at each airport. The same information is presented in airport classification breakouts, as well as oil region and non-oil producing, as well as NIPIAS and non-NIPIAS. So that is overall your statewide summary of information, whether it be area of pavement by each breakout, whether it's use or surface type. It's also age information on the system, as well as more details on area weighted condition and of the pavements in each one of these systems. The next tab is a needs analysis, and this presents an overall analysis of the current PCI of each pavement and its projected funding needs, as well as its current condition and future condition of the system. So this is a fairly straightforward chart here. It's broken out. The black bars are the entire pavement system. So this is a funding scenario showing the current estimated total fiscal need of pavement repair needs for the system under an unlimited funding scenario. So this is what the actual pavements need currently, independent of whether you have enough funding for it or not. And it shows that it's front-loaded. The current 2022 projected need for all of the system is $212 million, roughly, approximately. And if that was done, this is the projected need in each subsequent year during the 5-year analysis period. It's broken out by general aviation and commercial airports, by oil and non-oil, and NIPIAS and non-NIPIAS. So we provide those breakouts for that. We also present the system condition dating back to 2009, and every 3 years since that time. You can see the overall area weighted PCI of the entire system in black is 76 in 2009. It went to 77 in 2012. It dropped back to 76, went up to 79 in the most recent evaluation, had it at 77. So historically, the overall system condition of the entire state system of airports included in the project is held relatively stable. It shows that if you were able to fund all of the projected needs to the pavement, you could hit a ceiling of about a PCI of 88 for the system in 5 years. So that would be underneath a limited funding scenario. The current anticipated funding scenario shows you're holding your own at a PCI of 79. So around that same condition that you've experienced historically. And then if you stop spending money on the system, you could expect the PCI of the system or the condition of the system to drop to a PCI of 69 in 5 years if no repairs were needed. So think of the first one, overall needs, is the ceiling. This is what's anticipated in the middle, and this would be your floor at the no funding scenario. So that's the breakdown of the information that's provided in the summarized statistics. The last tab over here in the statewide is a link to download an executive summary of the entire system. It's a PDF format, as well as previous copies that were developed during past studies are linked here. So that is the statewide summary information. And again, this has not changed particularly over the last update. The information is presented here has been updated, but the functionality and the features included are very similar to what has been presented in the previous interactive program. Selecting the individual airport details allows you to drill down and get into individual airport information and see individual pavements and how those are performing and how they've been tracked over the past updates. This is where you'll see the first new feature within the current new interactive program, and that it opens up and starts looking at a state map with all the airports identified. One thing I want to mention here is in the upper left-hand corner of this map, there's actually a map type drop-down list. We're currently seeing the area-weighted PCI of the 2021 area-weighted condition of the entire airport, all the pavements included at each airport. And that's what the dots are signifying along with the legend at the bottom. So you can see some airports are in good condition. A lot of them are in excellent condition or very good condition. And there's a few that are showing up as not in as good a condition. A timeline is presented here. So this is the inspected condition, and if we take the forecasted condition going forward for all the pavements, that timeline information is presented here, and you can select the dot and drag it down. You'll also see that I'm in a split mode here where I see a map and data on the right-hand side, and this timeline is showing you the table here according to the PCI, depending on what year I've selected in the timeline. If I were just to select an individual airport, call out Bismarck, it highlights to that row, and it helps us understand what year in this analysis, in this forecast analysis, we are looking at. So this is a new feature with having the map. Again, I mentioned there's a map type here, and this is an area-weighted condition. A couple of the other types of maps here are about airport classification. That pulls up some inventory information for each airport, approximate pavement area, the number of pavements that are out here, the weighted age shown in the data over here. You can see the airport classification split between general aviation and commercial service. There's whether it's in an oil producing county or not, whether it's part of the NIPIAS or not. And then we also put the weighted average age of the pavement at inspection. So as of 2021, this is an area weighted age of all the pavements at each airport. But the primary pavement and the one that's opened up by default is the PCI, which shows you a color condition of an overall condition of each airport. So this is a new feature in the current version of the interactive tool. If you want to select an airport, you can highlight it, select it, and you can either change the data view, which is network as the entire state. Branch would bring in an airport and it would show you an area weighted calculation of all the pavements within each facility. So if there's multiple pavements constructed in a runway, it would show you an area weighted calculation of all those pavements. And then section are the individual pieces of pavement that were constructed at one time in a similar condition. That's the level that we actually inspect the condition of each pavement at. You can either select the data view that you'd like here, or if you double click on the icon on the airport, it will bring you in and bring you right into the section level. So I've selected Bismarck as this example. Here's a map of all the pavements at the airport and their current 2021 pavement condition as we inspected them. Again, the timeline information is here. Now you see a condition table with each individual pavement listed here. If the pavement existed in the past, we've maintained the previous inspections to show what the conditions were of the pavements in the past. If the pavement has had rehabilitation and has been reconstructed, it may show not applicable because the pavement didn't exist at that time and it's been reconstructed. But forecasted future condition, if you do nothing to the pavement, is also projected in this timeline and shown, and it's linked interactively to the map. So this is very similar to what we had in previous updates and previous interactive systems. The information that is displayed here is very similar. Down in the lower right-hand label, you have the choice of turning on and off the map labels if they get too cluttered, too confusing. Some of the labels don't show up, but as you zoom in, they do show up. They do start showing up. So you can see what each pavement is, how it's identified. This is Taxiway Charlie at Bismarck, and it's pavement section number 20. It's 2021 PCI was the 38. You can see that context information displayed as I hover over that section. There's also, I'll just go ahead and select it. There's also some summary details over here on the left-hand side that show what pavement type it was, when its last major rehabilitation occurred. In this case, it was in 1999, so the pavement's 23 years old, or at least the surface is, and when it was inspected, and what its actual PCI was. Selecting out in the off of the map goes back out to having all of the pavements selected so you can see them all. Again, you can turn on and off the map labels in the lower right-hand corner of this map interface. You can turn on and off the aerial imagery if you find that to be beneficial. The one thing that is also not turned on by default, but you can turn on, are the photographs that were taken during the inspection. And these are all located at the approximate locations that the pavement photographs were taken. And if you hover over them, they'll show a thumbnail of that pavement photograph. If you select each one, if you select an individual photo, the photo tab shows up on the right-hand side and you start seeing the photos that were taken. You can click on the magnifying glass to open up a larger view of each photo. And you can actually right-click on that photo and download it and save it if you'd like to put it in a report or use it in some way later on. So those are all the photos that are taken and their locations, and you can toggle those on and off by selecting this photo tab in the lower right-hand corner. Again, this is not any different from past systems of the interactive programs that have been provided with these updates. I am going to take some time and show you a new feature, the other major new feature within this interactive program for this update, and it is the section filtering tool. Down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see this green bar. It says section filters. By selecting that, it opens up a new interface. It allows me to filter data at this airport at the section level based on several categories: pavement condition, age, branch use, so whether it's a runway, taxiway, apron, T-hanger pavement, and surface type, as well as pavement distresses that were observed during the inspection. As a quick example, I can show you if I wanted to see, let's say, all the pavements where the PCI was greater than 50, this timeline can be drug over until you get to a PCI minimum of 50. That's the window here. It shows you up in the upper left-hand corner that approximately 67 of the 81 pavements at the airport had PCIs in the range of 50 to 100. And the map is highlighted to show that. I'm going to turn off the photographs. So these are all the pavements that fit this initial criteria. You can use the drag bar if you want. I can say, just show me the ones between 50 and 85. You can see it updates and shows immediately on the right-hand side on the map. You can also enter a number. If you want to highlight the number here, I can change that to a 90 and it updates that filter. So this information, I will say, you're looking at the map so you can see a depiction of where these pavements are that currently have PCIs between 50 and 90. But there's also in the upper right-hand corner a display view which shows map and data. And if I want to see a summary of all of the pavements with PCIs between 50 and 90, it breaks down and shows me some organized and combined data for the pavements, that those 42 pavements now that meet these criteria. It shows you the PCI ranges between a 51 and a 90. The area weighted PCI for all of them combined was a 69. This is the information that I've filtered. This is the system as a whole. So you can see a combination and a comparison between the two. I'm currently looking at 2.77 million square feet as opposed to 5.38 million square feet of the entire airport. And it shows you that summarized information. It also shows you some of the distress quantities, the estimated total amounts of distress that are combined within each one of these. Some of the pavements are asphalt, surface pavements, and some of the pavements are Portland cement concrete pavements. If you're curious what the definition was, the condition was there is no filter on these other categories, but the filter applied is PCIs between 50 and 90. So that's one of the items here. I'm going to go back to the map. You can combine certain filters if you want to select a different category, and here's a good example. Let's say I want to look at pavements that were in relatively good condition, so they had a PCI greater than 70, but they weren't brand new. So maybe they have a high PCI of, let's say, 95. So those are the pavements with PCIs greater than 70, but less than 95. And if I want to look at candidates that might have had some cracks, let's say asphalt surface pavements that had some L&T cracking in it that could potentially be sealed, I can say I'd like to look at surface types that are just asphalt or asphalt overlaid on asphalt. And I want to look for specific distress types. So I want to apply a distress filter. So I toggle that and it opens up all the combinations of distress filters. Because I've only selected asphalt pavements, I'm only seeing asphalt types of distress. But if I want to see candidate pavements, let's say in this category, that don't have any load-related distress. So they don't have alligator cracking or rutting. Those are the two primary load-related distresses in asphalt. I can select exclude alligator cracking at all three severities, exclude the rutting at any severity, all three severities, and you can see the number next to it tells you how many of those I have in that. But I do want to look at pavements that have L&T cracking. So there's L&T cracking. I've selected all three severities. Now you can see in the context next to it, there's only a handful of pavements left. There's 17 of the 81 pavements that don't have load-related issues, but do have L&T cracking that could potentially be sealed. So if I'm an airport and I have some extra money for crack sealing, these might be the candidate pavements I would focus on spending that crack sealing money. And if I go back up to the data view, here's a combination of the amounts of distress. So there's a little bit of depression in those pavements. There's 7,400 linear feet of medium severity L&T cracking that could potentially be sealed, as well as some weathering, some raveling, and a little tiny bit of swelling. So you can kind of see a combination of those and get an idea of how much crack sealing there is out there. This is an example of one of those filters. There's many other types of combinations you could include in here. You could look to see where PCIs are failing that have load-related distress, and in that case, you might want to include alligator cracking and rutting, but don't include others. You want to look at PCIs below certain ranges. These filters and this filter interface really take some time to play with, but it's a new feature. It's been redesigned, and it provides much more robust way of filtering data, as well as presenting that information and combined results based on the filter that's selected. I will say this is the major feature update in this version of the interactive tool as part of this project. So playing with this and getting familiar with it is fairly good exercise for those that might become more power users of the information or want to see anything. Now that I'm done demonstrating it, there is a clear all filters tool. So it's cleared every filter that I've selected. Now I'm looking at all the pavements, and then the lower left-hand corner, I can leave the filter mode and I go back to the previous interface where all the pavements are there available for me to select, and I'm no longer filtering data. Beyond that, the rest of the information that's presented at the airport level provides PCI by year charts. If I select an individual pavement, it shows me when it was constructed in the PCI inspections, as well as the forecasted information moving forward. That is shown here. You can toggle down and select each individual airport. This information is presented here for all the airports. So you can see here's a good example of a pavement that was built in 1999, had a couple of inspections, had the surface or reconstructed in 2014, went back to 100, and then it's had some work done, another mill and overlay over those years, showing you the PCIs, and then the most recent one, as well as the forecasted individual PCI for each pavement. That information is actually shown in the table as well for each one of these pieces of pavements, and the forecast information and the timeline data is actually associated with that as well. So that really hasn't changed. Under the inventory, there's some basic inventory information for each pavement. If you want to know the construction history or the work history of each individual pavement, you can select that pavement, go into the work history tab. Once you select the pavement, it shows you the detailed work history of each one of these pavements. I'm going to select out on the map and show all of them again. The inspection, this is the individual actual distress quantities that were estimated for each pavement based on the actual visual inspection that was conducted. Again, if you select an individual pavement, the context shows you those distress quantities as they were identified for each one of these pavements. The photographs tab just provides all the photographs that were taken during the inspection. I have selected the runway pavement, so it is highlighted here, the lower portion. The recommended work, this is the unlimited funding scenario analysis that identifies the current pavement needs for each one. It's a 5-year analysis that starts in 2022, and it goes through and shows each pavement, whether it needs preventive maintenance, whether it's recommended for a potential surface treatment, meaning it doesn't have any load-related issues, but it's an asphalt surface pavement that might have some weathering associated with potentially other distresses that are not age or load related, but it's a candidate for a potential surface treatment. If there's a raveling and a FOD issue with the pavement, it could be recommended for resurfacing to remove that FOD problem or that potential FOD problem that is starting. And then major M&R or major rehab for anything that has gotten beyond its normal life of recommended preventive maintenance and other types of repairs, but needs something more significant. So if there's a dollar figure associated in one of these columns, that's the type of general repair or rehabilitation work in its category that's recommended for each pavement. I will say there's also another table that just provides the category of work that's recommended for each pavement during the analysis, and that is actually associated with another map type up in the upper left-hand corner. There is a maintenance and rehabilitation map. This shows you the current unlimited funding scenario results highlighted by pavement and according to the type of work, whether it's no work, preventive maintenance, surface treatment, resurfacing, or major M&R. And there is a timeline for the 5-year window that shows when things are popping up. And this is when the pavement need is identified, not necessarily whether there's a funding availability to address those needs. So it's an unlimited funding scenario. We do run a post 5-year scenario. So after the 5-year analysis window, and I'll return to a PCI map now. After the 5-year analysis window, we look at to see if in the next 5 years, if any of the runways will have a need that pops up for any of the pavements. This is a little bit more longer view or more forward-thinking view just for the runways, just to see if there's something else on the radar. For any pavement that is recommended for maintenance, preventive maintenance, whether that be crack sealing, patching, spall repair, partial depth repair, joint resealing, those types of maintenance activities, the detailed estimates of those maintenance activities are provided in the detailed maintenance tab. So if you were to go back to the 5-year work plan and see a pavement, this is the apron, the general aviation apron, section 10 was recommended for preventive maintenance, roughly $1,500. If I go to that same section, AGA 10, you can see it's joint seal damage at medium severity, and it's roughly $1,500 to replace the joint seal there. So these are the details of the maintenance that's identified. Any pavements that are identified as a potential for a surface treatment, it lists those pavements here, and it also provides you an estimated PCI before the work and after the work is done. This assumes that you would seal any cracks and do some of those other repairs before you place the surface treatment. So you can see in this first example, for it's a small area, if you were to seal the cracks and put a surface treatment on it, would address those distresses like weathering, and the crack sealing would potentially reduce in severity, and you could go from an 89 to a 94. If you don't apply the surface treatment but just seal the cracks, we have a table down here that just shows you the impact that just the normal maintenance activity has on the condition. Finally, information on the unit costs that are used, and these are average unit costs throughout the state is presented here. This information is very important as you start looking locally at your own airport, especially with inflation and other impacts, regional impacts, and supply chain issues. It's good to kind of look and see what unit costs are being used, because these are average costs throughout the state. They're not necessarily accurate for each individual airport, depending on your current location, mobilization needs, and current economic conditions that we're seeing today. So it's good to see what unit costs are, and hopefully airports have a relative good idea of whether or not this is either low or high for them, and they can make that adjustment when they're looking at these results. Finally, the repair policies that are used for pavements that are recommended for maintenance. You can see the different distress types, their severities, and what is recommended as the primary type of repair for each one of those. This is the work repair strategy that's applied to identify the detailed maintenance estimates, and that is used in the 5-year work plan. So again, this information is here. It's very much the same as what was presented during previous updates. So those of you that have used this before should be able to find this information relatively straightforward again to identify. We do have a documents tab. As I mentioned, there's an individual executive summary for each airport. We have the past executive summaries for each one for the studies that we've conducted over the past 4 years, including the most recent one, and these are available for download. Finally, there's some individual summary charts for each individual airport. Just breaks out similar information to the statewide summary information, but it's showing up just for this current airport. So whichever airport you're currently working with and selected, there's branch use, there's surface type, and then there's PCI by branch use for the entire pavement. Lastly, during the 2012 update of the system, we did a pavement classification number evaluation of the commercial service airport runways, and we determined the PCNs, or the relative strength compared to aircraft ACNs of the runways at each of the airports. That information has not been updated since 2012. It's still the same information from 2012 and has been provided in here according to past updates, but it's here for reference for people should they have use for that. I will say that there is a new system that has now been adopted as of 2022. They've changed the system from PCN, or pavement classification number, to PCR, or pavement classification rating. And they are looking at having airports update their numbers and their reporting to the new system over the next couple of years. So that's something to consider as well. There is no straight correlation between PCN and PCR either. So it's not as though you could take it and multiply it by a factor of 10. It's a different process. but it is something that is on the horizon, and hopefully airports are able to address that soon. So that's the summary of the individual airport details, documenting the network level map, as well as the new section filtering feature within this update. Please spend some time going over those and learning how to use those two features. Keep in mind that up in the upper left-hand corner, there might be some different types of maps that are available to you. In the upper right-hand corner, there is, for those that might have real estate issues, you can look at a display view that is just the map. You can look at a split view usually that shows map on the left and data on the right. Or if you don't have enough space, you can just look at the data, and that would be for use with screen resolutions and smaller monitor sizes if you needed to manipulate that to make sure it was easier to view. The remaining tabs are very simple guidance information. They provide routine maintenance guidelines and recommendations, some of the general recommendations, some maintenance guidelines and links out to advisory circulars from the FAA on how to guidelines and procedures for maintaining airport pavements, as well as pavement management programs and information about those, which this is what this product is meant to provide the information from the pavement management program for the state of North Dakota. So there's some advisory circulars and information listed there. There is a pavement inspection tab again that provides an overview of the PCI procedure and process. It also provides descriptions of all the asphalt surface pavement distresses, so alligator cracking, the severity levels, some photographs of those according to the ASTM standard that documents how to perform these inspections. There's typical causes of asphalt types of distress, and then it provides information for Portland cement concrete distresses, as well as typical causes of those Portland cement concrete distresses. So that's some overview and some guideline information on the condition inspection process that has been done for the state of North Dakota. And then finally, there's some miscellaneous information here, acronyms that are used throughout the system. So if you ever have any need to look to see what some of the acronyms are that you see pop up, you can always go to this miscellaneous tab and see what the definitions are for those, as well as some general information about the tool. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our company, Applied Pavement Technology, or myself, Kyle Potvin, the project manager for our firm for this project, and I'd be able to, or the AppTech project manager for the project, and I'd be able to answer any specific questions you'd have on this interactive program. Again, I want to thank Mead & Hunt, the principal or prime consultant on this firm that we team with. It's been a pleasure continuing to serve the state of North Dakota and providing this information. And this will now end our quick tutorial. Again, hopefully you find this information useful. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you for your time.